If you found Jessica Linwood's story inspiring, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more true stories of resilience, innovation, and quiet triumph. Every week, we bring you powerful narratives of people who faced betrayal, adversity, or injustice, and turned those moments into something extraordinary. Our content is made especially for those who know it's never too late to rise, reclaim what's rightfully yours, and create a lasting legacy. Whether you've experienced workplace challenges, family conflict, or simply need a reminder of your worth, this channel is for you. Subscribe now and tap the notification bell so you never miss a story that could change the way you see your own journey. Got a story like Jessica's? Tell us in the comments, we might feature you next. This is where quiet strength gets the recognition it deserves. Jessica Linwood sat quietly in the early morning stillness of her apartment in Seattle, the bluish light from her monitor casting long shadows on the hardwood floor. At 52, she was no stranger to burning the midnight oil, but these past 3 months had been something else entirely. She had poured herself into SentraLine, a cutting-edge AI logistics platform designed for military-grade supply chains. Late nights, endless revisions, and thousands of lines of code, Jessica had lived and breathed this project. She leaned back, eyes stinging, and whispered, "It's done." The final version of the presentation was saved, the graphs polished, the projections rock solid. SentraLine could land her firm, Benton and Maris, an account worth nearly $20 million with Norex Systems, the largest defense supplier in the U.S. Jessica checked the time, 7:42 a.m. The pitch was set for 11. She started printing the slide deck, her fingers trembling with both fatigue and hope. Her phone vibrated. A message from her supervisor. "Derek wants to see you." Now, Jessica gathered the neatly printed copies and headed upstairs. Derek Monroe, a senior partner notorious for taking credit where it wasn't due, greeted her with a half-smile that always felt more calculated than kind. "All set for the pitch?" he asked, glancing over the deck. "I've reviewed everything twice over," she replied, handing him a copy. He flipped through the slides at a glacial pace. "Nice layout. Good data. But let's make a few tweaks before showtime. I'll lead the presentation. You'll provide backup if needed." Jessica's heart skipped. "I thought," she began, but caught herself. He hadn't even shown interest until now. "There's a section explaining how SentraLine's architecture draws from the early Cold War resupply protocols in remote airbases," she added. Derek nodded vaguely. Interesting connection. Back at her desk, Jessica updated her personal notes, her nerves tightly coiled. This pitch wasn't just business, it was legacy. She had built SentraLine from scratch, and this was her moment to shine. At 10:55 a.m., she gathered her materials and headed toward the conference room. Then her phone buzzed again. "Change of plan. I've got it covered. Wait outside." She froze. Wait outside? From around the corner, she watched through the glass wall as Derek welcomed the Norex team with firm handshakes and practice charm. The screen behind him lit up, not with SentraLine, but a new title, RouteCore, Strategic Military Logistics AI. Jessica's breath caught. He had rebranded everything. She pressed closer, listening. "I developed RouteCore over the last year, building off complex field data analysis and adaptive routing frameworks," Derek declared. "My team provided minor support with logistics modeling." Minor support? Jessica was the team. Slide after slide rolled by, her numbers, her systems, her algorithm architecture, camouflaged beneath altered names and recolored graphics. She stood frozen as the Norex CEO smiled and said, "Brilliant. You've truly outdone yourself, Derek." Jessica stepped back from the door, blood pounding in her ears. The man had stolen everything, her months of labor, her insight, her future. But even as her fingers clenched around the folder in her hands, her eyes were sharp with clarity. This wasn't over. Not even close. Handshakes were exchanged, compliments floated in the air, and the executives from Norex quietly exited through a different door. Derek Monroe stepped out moments later, grinning like he'd just returned from a championship parade. They loved it, he beamed as he spotted Jessica. "Raucor is a smash." Jessica's expression froze. "That's SentraLine," she replied, her voice sharp and measured. Derek's smile didn't waver. "Jessica, don't be melodramatic. You're experienced. You'll think of something else. Let this one help the firm shine." "You erased my name," she said, voice low and unwavering. "You took everything and branded it as your own." He leaned closer, voice dropping. "You did the work while on company time, using company systems under company strategy. It's ours. Go ahead, tell HR. I'm a senior partner. Who do you think they'll side with?" Then he turned and walked away, leaving Jessica standing under the stark hallway lights, disbelief hardening into resolve. Back at her cubicle, she opened her laptop with calm fingers. On the surface, she appeared composed, but inside, a storm was brewing. She began retrieving her documentation. Every archived email, calendar invite, draft version, design note, and voice memo. She created a secured folder titled Project_Origin and began transferring every detail that connected her to SentraLine's development. There it was, a file timestamped 13 weeks ago with the initial system concept and routing logic. An audio log from her project kickoff call. Meeting notes shared with teammates. And most importantly, the provisional patent she had filed under her own name as a safeguard, a move she'd made quietly, just in case. As she scrolled further, she stumbled upon an audio clip from a design review with Derek. His voice was unmistakable. Wait, what is SentraLine supposed to mean again? The confusion in his tone was all the proof she needed. Her lips curled slightly. She plugged in an encrypted flash drive and backed up everything. Then she picked up her phone. "Dr. Evelyn Royce," came the answer after 2 rings. "Hi, it's Jessica Linwood," she said, steady and deliberate. Dr. Royce had once been her mentor at UW, a brilliant mind who now worked as an independent advisor and, crucially, as a consultant to Norex Systems. "Jessica, what a nice surprise. How's everything at Benton and Maris? I need to speak with you." Off the record. 20 minutes later, over a quiet call, Jessica laid it all out. The theft, the pitch, the deceit. There was silence on the other end. "Send me 3 things," Evelyn finally said. "Your patent filing, that audio clip of Derek asking what SentraLine means, and your original concept document with the date stamp." Jessica hesitated. "What are you planning to do?" "Nothing for now," Evelyn replied. "But if Norex is going to partner on a $20 million system, they should know who they're really working with." Jessica breathed slowly. "It was a risk, but one worth taking." "Jonathan Keller is Norex's CTO," Evelyn added. "And I know him well. He cares about transparency." Jessica sent the files and immediately deleted her outbound message. An hour later, her phone buzzed. From Evelyn. "Jonathan Keller would like to meet. Discreetly. There's a coffee house on 3rd and Jackson. 3 p.m. Jessica stood, folder in hand, calm as ever. Time to set the record straight. Jessica arrived early at Cafe Arista, choosing a quiet spot near the back where she could see the entrance, but remain mostly out of view. At exactly 7:30 a.m., Jonathan Keller walked in tall, silver-haired, dressed in a dark wool coat that matched the chill of the Seattle morning. He placed his order, then joined her without ceremony. "Dr. Royce speaks highly of you," he said, stirring cream into his coffee. "Said you were one of the most analytical thinkers she's ever worked with." "She's been more than a mentor to me," Jessica replied softly. "I went through the materials she passed along," Keller continued. His tone was neutral, but his eyes gave nothing away. "There's a lot to co." Jessica felt her chest tighten but kept her posture relaxed. "I'm not accusing anyone. I just want the system I created to be represented to." "I respect that," Keller said. "Most people would have gone straight to leg." "This isn't about Derek," she said carefully. "It's about SentraLine. The idea has value beyond credit. It should stand on its own." "Kel." Nothing drastic. Keller's lips twitched in a faint smile. "Subtle. I can work with subtle." Jessica watched him walk out into the foggy morning, wondering if she had salvaged her project or jeopardized everything she'd built. The days passed. At Benton and Maris, Jessica continued with her assignments as if nothing had changed. Derek acted like their hallway confrontation had never happened. He was consumed with the Norex contract, mentioning progress during team meetings but never making eye contact with her again. "The final meeting is scheduled," he announced one morning. "We're locking in the $20 million deal next week." Jessica remained quiet, her face unreadable. The day before the meeting, Derek called her into his office. "I'll need you there tomorrow," he said flatly. "For what exactly?" she asked. "Technical support. If they bring up anything outside my scope." "I thought I was just support staff," she replied, her tone cool. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be," he said, visibly irritated. Jessica gave a polite nod. "I'll be there." The next morning, she arrived at Norex headquarters. To her surprise, a visitor badge with her name was already waiting. When she entered the prep room, Derek glanced up and looked uneasy. "Don't speak unless someone asks for technical input," he said. He didn't share the presentation file, which was password protected. Jessica nodded, seating herself along the side wall with her notepad. She watched the meeting unfold with careful attention. Derek moved through the pitch confidently, highlighting innovations, showing off metrics, and describing functionalities, all built from her designs. Then, as he reached the final section, Jonathan Keller cleared his throat. "Just one final point before we wrap," he said casually. "Of course," Derek replied with a smile. "Where did the name SentraLine originate?" Silence. Derek blinked. "We've actually renamed it Route Core, as you saw on the slides." "Yes," Keller said. "But originally, it was called SentraLine." "I'd like to hear the story behind that." Derek hesitated, his grin twitching. "It was just a placeholder term. Nothing meaningful," Derek muttered quickly, trying to wave the question away. Jonathan Keller shifted his gaze to Jessica. "Ms. Linwood, any thoughts?" Jessica didn't miss a beat. "The name comes from a Cold War initiative, Operation Sentinel Base, 1962. It was a military supply corridor in Alaska where only automated convoys survived the terrain. The adaptive routing logic in SentraLine draws directly from that historical model." A beat of silence followed. Then Keller gave a subtle nod. "Remarkable. That aligns perfectly with the explanation we were given previously," he said, his voice flat but firm. Derek's complexion drained of color. He stammered, "Yes, exactly. It was part of the foundational research." Jessica handled the documentation side. "It was a team contribution." Keller didn't react. The meeting resumed, but the atmosphere was different. Norex executives shared quiet looks. Derek's voice lost its edge, and he fumbled the closing segments of the pitch. His polished demeanor had faded. Once it wrapped, Keller shook Derek's hand. "We'll follow up. Appreciate your time." Outside the room, near the elevators, Derek blocked Jessica's path. "What exactly was that?" he growled under his breath. Jessica stared back calmly. "Your move." "I just made mine." "You think this changes anything?" he snapped. "You don't get to rewrite the rules." She stepped into the elevator, unfazed. "We'll find out soon enough." Back at Benton and Maris, Derek called an urgent partner meeting. Jessica wasn't invited, but she saw the silhouettes through the glass, Derek gesturing wildly while the others watched with furrowed brows. An hour later, a junior analyst slipped by her desk. "What did you do at Norex?" he whispered. Derek's in a tailspin. Jessica offered a quiet smile. "Just answered a question." 3 days passed. Then her phone rang, unknown number. "Ms. Linwood? This is Norex Systems. Mr. Keller would like to meet with you, privately." Now seated in a glass-walled office overlooking downtown Seattle, Jessica waited with nerves tightly coiled. Was she facing professional exile or something entirely unexpected? Keller entered, shook her hand, and locked the door behind him. "Appreciate you coming in," he said. "What I'm about to show you is for your eyes only." He placed a thick binder in front of her. Inside were her documents, the original pitch, audio logs, timestamps, and private drafts. But there was more. Norex's legal team had retrieved access logs, internal communications from Benton and Maris, and patent filing metadata, all tracing back to her. "Our team has done a full review," Keller said. "The origin of SentraLine is indisputable." Jessica held her breath. "And we'd like you to lead the platform on our side. Partner level, full ownership recognition, and 7 figures annually." He slid an offer packet across the desk. Jessica scanned the pages, her hands trembling. "But what about the current contract?" she asked quietly. Keller's smile returned. "We're terminating it." He handed her another folder, termination notice for Benton and Maris. "It hasn't been delivered yet," he said. "But first, we were wondering." He paused. "Would you like to be the one to hand it to Derek Monroe?" Jessica looked down at the folder in her lap, 1,000 thoughts crashing through her mind. It wasn't just a position, it was vindication. And the chance to return the favor. Jessica looked up from the termination letter. "You're saying I can hand this over myself?" Keller gave a slight nod. "If you prefer. There's no obligation. Our legal department is ready to deliver it." Jessica sat in thought for a moment. Quiet resolution wouldn't change the culture at Benton and Maris. Derek would just move on to the next bright idea and claim it as his own. "I'll do it," she said at last. Keller smiled and tucked the papers into a crisp manila envelope. "Whenever you're ready, our offer stands." Back at the office, Jessica submitted a meeting request through Derek's assistant. "I'd like to provide a final update on RouteCore," she explained, keeping her tone casual. That evening, she drafted her resignation, packed the contents of her desk into a single storage box, and took one final glance around the home office she'd once considered a second home. The next morning, she arrived early. Her car was parked and ready with her belongings. Inside the firm, the mood felt oddly still. Derek was already seated in the conference room when she entered, smug and self-assured. "Ready to debrief me on the back-end systems?" he asked. "We're this close to signing." Without a word, Jessica slid the envelope across the table. "What's this?" Derek asked, frowning as he opened it. Inside, her resignation letter, the official offer naming her as Chief Innovation Officer at Norex, and a formal termination of the contract between Norex and Benton and Maris. "They've decided to partner with the person who actually developed the platform," Jessica said evenly. "I came here as a courtesy." Derek's face lost all color. His hands shook as he flipped through each page. "You can't be serious," he said, then louder. "You can't do this." Jessica stood calmly. "It's already in motion. This is a breach of ethics. A lawsuit waiting to happen. I'll take you to court. I'll take Norex to court." Jessica adjusted the cuff of her blazer. "Then you'd better start with the evidence trail. It's well documented. You were never the originator." She turned toward the door, then paused. "Next time, try creating something of your own." The door closed behind her with a soft thud. As she walked through the office for the last time, a few coworkers nodded politely, unaware of the shift that had just occurred. When she reached the elevator, her phone vibrated, an anonymous message confirming that Benton and Maris had received a whistleblower report. An internal investigation was underway. Jessica hadn't submitted anything. Perhaps someone else had been watching. That afternoon, a colleague sent her a screenshot. An industry publication was already raising questions about the abrupt leadership change surrounding SentraLine. Her phone rang. "Congratulations," said Evelyn Royce. "And no, I didn't leak anything about Derek." Jessica chuckled. "Of course not." She started at Norex the following week. Her name now adorned the glass door of a corner office, Jessica Linwood, Chief Innovation Officer, SentraLine Division. And while she began rebuilding the vision Derek had tried to warp, he spent his days scrambling to defend a legacy that had never been his. But the facts kept mounting against Derek. The metadata proved Jessica had created the SentraLine architecture long before any involvement from Benton and Maris. A quiet wave of emails containing a voice clip, Derek asking what SentraLine meant, circulated discreetly among the partners. By her second week at Norex, Jessica began hearing whispers. Derek had been removed from major accounts. His official title no longer included Head of Innovation. It was as if his authority was evaporating one line of code at a time. Then, unexpectedly, he emailed her directly. "You're making this personal, Jess. We were a team. I gave you a platform. Don't throw it all away." Jessica didn't reply. She was fully invested in SentraLine, her SentraLine. When a journalist from Defense Wire Weekly called for comment, she gave a calm, measured response. "There's no drama. The records are public. My focus is on delivering the system correctly, nothing more." Her words appeared in the article next to Derek's panicked denials. The contrast between them couldn't have been clearer. 1 month into her role, she received a surprise visit. It was Maria Lopez, her former intern, now visibly tense as she stepped into Jessica's new office. "I didn't know where else to go," Maria began, clutching her messenger bag. "It's bad over there." Jessica motioned to a seat. "What's going on?" "Derek blamed me for the leak," Maria said, voice shaking. "He told HR I sent internal files to Norex. Said I was working for you." Jessica's brow furrowed. "That's outrageous." "You didn't do anything." "I know," Maria sighed. "But I'm just a temp. He had me reassigned to clerical work. No warning, no explanation." Jessica looked at the young woman who'd spent countless late nights helping her debug modules. Maria was sharp, loyal, and undeserving of the fallout. "How do you feel about joining my team?" Jessica asked. "Junior systems analyst. Competitive salary. Full-time." Maria blinked. "Wait, seriously? We're building from scratch, but we're doing it the right way." Jessica handed her a business card with the contact info for Norex's HR department. "Send in your resume this afternoon." After Maria left, Jessica stood by the window, gazing across the city. Benton and Maris's high-rise stood in the distance. She hadn't planned to recruit from her old firm. But if Derek was targeting good people, maybe it was time they had a place to grow. By Friday, Maria had a badge and a desk. And she wasn't the only one. Over the next 8 weeks, Jessica assembled a powerhouse team, many from Benton, some from other firms, each drawn by what they'd heard. Her story traveled faster than she ever expected. "If you could stand up to Derek Monroe," one veteran engineer told her during an interview, "this is probably a place where vision matters more than politics." Jessica never badmouthed her old employer. She didn't need to. Her results spoke for themselves. When the National Defense Logistics Summit released its speaker list, Jessica was stunned to see her name in bold on the keynote lineup. Topic: Protecting Innovation in High-Stakes Industries. Derek's name was nowhere to be found. 2 days before the event, a message arrived via LinkedIn. It was from a board member at Benton and Maris. "We're conducting a full review of partner activity. If you'd be open to sharing your experience, off the record, it would mean a great deal." Jessica replied with grace. "Happy to discuss. I believe transparency helps everyone move forward." She shared only documented information, no emotion, no blame. Just truth that could be traced and confirmed. That same afternoon, Derek Monroe was quietly placed on leave. No press release followed, but within hours, people in the industry noticed his name had vanished from Benton and Maris' leadership directory. The National Defense Logistics Summit drew top voices from government agencies, defense firms, and pioneering tech startups. Jessica felt composed as she stepped up to the podium, her notes held in a steady hand. "SentraLine started as a problem," she began. "How do we create logistics systems that don't just respond, but anticipate? that don't break under pressure, but adapt. For 20 minutes, she mapped out the architecture and theory behind the system. She never mentioned Derek. She didn't need to. The room was engaged, questions came from all corners, technical and insightful. Jessica fielded them all. Then someone in the back asked, "Was it difficult to gain proper credit for your work?" A hush followed. Everyone understood the reference. No one had dared speak it out loud. Jessica paused for a beat, then offered a measured smile. SentraLine wasn't built alone, but sometimes ideas need protection, even from those closest to them. Applause broke out, loud and lasting. In the front row, Jonathan Keller gave a small, approving nod. Afterward, a federal agency representative approached her. "We'd love to talk about potential advisory roles. Your insights are rare." That evening, Jessica found an email in her personal inbox from Derek. "The firm's blowing this out of proportion. My reputation's being destroyed over a simple misunderstanding. Can you clarify that this was all a miscommunication?" Jessica read it once and closed the tab. There was nothing left to explain. 6 months later, Jessica sat at the head of the Norex conference table, reviewing projections for SentraLine's international deployment, now a $40 million initiative, twice the original scope. Her team had grown to 50, including several former Benton employees who had joined not through recruitment, but by choice. The culture had shifted back at the old firm. People were leaving on their own. Trade publications continued to highlight her. Seattle strategist transforms military logistics without fanfare. Her name was cited often. Derek's was absent. After the meeting, Keller pulled her aside. A documentary group reached out. "They're creating a series on innovation led by women. They want to include your story." Jessica shook her head. "The product should speak louder than the person." "That's why they want you," Keller said, smiling. Later that day, a formal notice confirmed Derek had been removed as a partner. The memo cited ethical violations with no detail. An hour later, another email came from him. "Would you consider endorsing me for a board role at Norex? You know I understand this field." Jessica stared at it in disbelief. Even now, he didn't understand. Her reply was short. "Try building something of your own. Then we'll talk." Nearly a year to the day after the betrayal, Jessica stood alone in the SentraLine lab, quiet and dim under soft evening light. The prototype rested in its display housing. On its base, a new brass label. SentraLine, designed by Jessica Linwood. Her phone vibrated. A message from Evelyn Royce. "Have you seen the news? Benton and Maris was built the right way." Jessica hadn't been tracking news from her former employer, but Evelyn's message got her attention. "Benton and Maris is restructuring. They've lost 3 defense accounts in 6 months." Jessica blinked once, then replied simply, "I haven't kept up. Been focused here." "That's why you're ahead," Evelyn texted back. Eyes forward, not backward. Jessica smiled at the screen. She'd never aimed to bring Derek or the firm down. That was never her objective. She hadn't fought for revenge. She fought to reclaim her voice and safeguard what she had built. She reached out, brushing her fingertips across the original SentraLine prototype resting on its polished display pedestal. She remembered every long night at her kitchen table, every moment of doubt, every instance Derek had dismissed her ideas, only to claim them later as his own. "It was worth it," she whispered. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was Maria. "Team dinner tomorrow night. Expansion celebration. You're treating, right, Miss Executive of the Year." Jessica laughed aloud and texted back. "Of course. But don't call me CEO just yet." "Give it a minute," Maria replied with a winking emoji. 2 years later, Jessica sat in her sleek, light-filled office on the top floor of Norex Systems' Seattle campus. Behind her hung a row of framed patents. Each bore her name. SentraLine had evolved from a single adaptive logistics platform into a full suite of military-grade solutions, generating over $100 million annually. The division she led now touched everything from emergency relief to battlefield coordination. A knock on her open door broke her focus. Her assistant smiled. "Your 2 o'clock is here." The new graduate from MIT. Jessica stood. "Send them in." A young woman entered, poised but clearly nervous. "It's an honor, Ms. Linwood," she said, offering her hand. "Your work on adaptive routing inspired my thesis." Jessica shook her hand warmly. "Welcome to the team. Now tell me, what would you build next?" As the new hire laid out her ideas with energy and precision, Jessica listened, fully present. This mentorship, collaboration, protecting talent, this was the real reward. Later that day, a headline flashed across her phone. Former partner Derek Monroe joins regional logistics consultancy in reduced role. Jessica read it once, then deleted the notification without hesitation. His story had no bearing on hers anymore. That evening, she wandered into the expanded SentraLine development floor. Where once a small team operated, now dozens of engineers filled the space, refining the system she'd once imagined alone. Near the original prototype, a technician finished installing an updated plaque. SentraLine, innovated by Jessica Linwood, advanced by Norex Systems. Shaping global logistics. She lingered there, just watching. She'd never filed lawsuits, never gone public, never shouted. But she'd won. 5 years after Derek tried to claim her work, Jessica stood under bright stage lights, accepting the National Award for Defense Innovation. She held the Crystal Award with quiet pride. "Thank you for this incredible honor," she began. "Innovation is about more than invention. It's about integrity. It's about building spaces where good ideas are valued and credited." Applause filled the room. In the front row sat her full team, Maria included, now Director of Implementation. Afterward, a journalist approached. "Ms. Linwood, you've never commented publicly on what happened with Derek Monroe or Benton and Maris. Why is that?" Jessica considered for a moment, then smiled. "Because this was never his story. It was SentraLine's. Something that endures." Jessica finished her sentence quietly, looking past the journalist to the skyline outside her corner office. "But don't you feel vindicated?" the reporter pressed. "Benton and Maris dissolved their defense division while you led SentraLine to the top." Jessica gave a measured shake of her head. "Success isn't about someone else losing. It's about building something worthy and ensuring it lasts beyond you." The answer seemed too diplomatic for the reporter's taste. He jotted it down anyway. "Last one," he added. "There's talk that Derek Monroe applied for a consulting role here at Norex. Can you confirm?" Jessica offered a faint smile. "Staffing decisions go through HR. I'm focused on forward momentum." What she didn't say was this: the application had indeed reached her desk. She hadn't rejected it. She hadn't approved it. She returned it with one instruction: evaluate based on current qualifications, not history. She owed him nothing. Not anymore. 10 years after first launching SentraLine, Jessica Linwood was appointed CEO of Norex Systems. Every major publication in the defense tech sector ran the story. Engineer turned visionary takes the helm of innovation giant. The press release chronicled her journey, from strategy consultant to architect of a billion-dollar platform to executive leader. There was no mention of Derek. No whisper of the early betrayal. Just her work and where it had taken her. On her first morning in the executive suite, Jessica discovered a small box placed neatly at the center of her new desk. Inside was a brass compass. Inscribed on its edge, "Always follow true north." A note accompanied it, handwritten in elegant script, from someone who always believed you would chart the right course. Dr. Evelyn Royce had passed the previous spring. Jessica hadn't known she left a gift behind. She placed the compass near her monitor, where it caught the morning light. That afternoon, during her first leadership meeting, Jessica proposed a sweeping internal initiative, the Innovation Integrity Framework. Its purpose, to guarantee creators within the company received full recognition, compensation, and growth opportunities for every contribution they made. At Norex, she told the board, "We don't just create products. We build futures, and every great future starts by honoring those who imagined it first." The board approved it unanimously. Jessica's first act as CEO wasn't about hitting sales targets or raising capital. It was about culture, about ensuring no one else would ever be erased the way she once nearly was. 15 years after SentraLine's prototype changed her life, Jessica visited the company's new innovation hall, now a destination for educators, students, and global partners. At its heart stood the original SentraLine module, displayed inside a glass enclosure. A bronze plaque read, "SentraLine, developed by Jessica Linwood, 2023. Built for resilience, shaped by vision." No scandals, no grudges, just the facts and the legacy. As a class of middle school students gathered around, one girl raised her hand. Did Ms. Linwood know she was changing the world when she built this? The guide glanced toward Jessica, then smiled. "Why don't you ask her yourself?" "Ask her yourself. She's right over there." Every head turned toward Jessica Linwood, who had been quietly observing from the back of the group. The young girl's eyes widened in awe. Jessica stepped forward with a kind smile. "I didn't set out to make history," she said. "I just knew I had something worth defending." A second student raised her hand. "How did you make sure no one stole it?" Jessica paused, choosing her words thoughtfully. "By understanding its worth, keeping detailed records, and never letting anyone convince me I hadn't built it." 2 decades after SentraLine's first implementation, a commemorative event was held at Norex Systems headquarters. The platform had reshaped not only military operations, but global commercial logistics, impacting economies around the world. Jessica, who had stepped back from day-to-day leadership the previous year, now served as executive chair. She watched as a new sculpture was revealed in the central courtyard, a soaring falcon gliding along sculpted currents, symbolizing how SentraLine adapted to turbulence with grace and precision. The plaque beneath read, "When invention is protected and cultivated, it transforms the world." After the unveiling, someone approached from the crowd, slightly hunched, his hair now fully gray, but still recognizable. "Jessica," he said, voice soft, "you've built something incredible." She turned to face Derek Monroe. Oddly, she felt no resentment. Time had done its work. "Thank you for coming," she said calmly. "I've wanted to reach out for years," Derek admitted. "What I did back then, there's no excuse. I don't expect anything from you. But watching SentraLine grow, watching you, changed how I understand innovation." Jessica studied him for a moment. He looked diminished, not from age, but from realization. "What are you doing now?" she asked. "I teach at a university. Business ethics, of all things. I use my story as a warning." Jessica allowed herself a quiet chuckle. That actually sounds important. As he walked away, a journalist nearby lowered her phone. "Was that the man who tried to claim your work?" Jessica shook her head gently. "That's old history. Today's about the future." 25 years after SentraLine's conception, Jessica sat in her sunlit home office, revising the final chapter of her memoir. The book focused not on scandal, but on innovation, the perseverance behind invention, and the process of turning an idea into global infrastructure. Her phone rang. It was Maria Lopez, now CEO of Norex. "They called," Maria said, barely able to contain her excitement. "The Smithsonian. They want the original SentraLine prototype for their Women in Technology exhibit." Jessica smiled. "Then it belongs there. It's time." After they hung up, she turned back to her manuscript. Her legacy hadn't been secured by calling out her detractors. It had been forged by nurturing her idea, assembling the right team, and never compromising on values. Her real victory wasn't Derek's fall, it was that his betrayal was no longer the defining chapter of her life. Jessica closed her laptop and glanced at the photo on her desk, Her original SentraLine team, arms linked, standing beside the first unit they'd built. They had believed in her when no one else did, and together, they'd changed everything. As Jessica prepared to send the completed manuscript to her publisher, she paused to reflect on the question she was asked most often during panels and classroom visits. What advice would you give to someone in the same position you were in? Her response had never wavered. Keep a record. Understand your value. And remember, real achievement isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. The following day, she returned to Norex to assist with the final steps of transferring the original SentraLine unit to the Smithsonian. As she gently unplugged the aged prototype, a vivid memory surfaced, the moment she saw Derek claiming her innovation in front of a crowded boardroom. How distant that betrayal felt now, overshadowed by the decades of progress that followed. Soon, this system would be displayed among the nation's most important technological contributions. Her name would be there, not because she fought to tear someone else down, but because she chose to rise on her own terms. Jessica traced the edge of the engraved label with her fingertips, smiling softly. That one question had sparked everything. Where did the name SentraLine come from? She had answered without hesitation. And that answer had changed her life.